Thank you. Echo. It's Kathleen O'Donnell from the Board of Appeals, opening the hearing tonight on an application regarding 23 Parkwood Drive and Thayer Nursery. Kathleen O'Donnell is serving as chair, and I am attending this meeting in person, which we are doing as a hybrid meeting. Other members of the panel are going to be on Zoom. We have done that as an accommodation to the applicant at their request. Just would, as I said, introducing myself as the chair, and sitting on the panel tonight we have, can we see Michael and Jeff?
There we go.
Gentlemen, you want to introduce yourselves?
Jeffrey Mullen.
Good evening, everybody. Michael Brown.
I'm Jeffrey Mullen.
Thank you. So tonight it's application number 2884 regarding property at 23 Parkwood. The applicants are Philip Johanning and John Rowe. As I said, the members of the board tonight are me, Michael Brown, and Jeff Mullen. The application seeks to compel enforcement by the building inspector of the provisions of a special permit issued to Thayer Nursery on February 24, 2025, with particular attention to the requirement in that permit for a report on the drainage system to be submitted by July 1st of 2025. The applicants are alleging that there has been flooding on their property caused as overflow as stormwater from Thayer Nursery, and had requested enforcement by the building inspector. The building inspector did an inspection and did not take any further action, and hence the appeal to the Board of Appeals for a hearing on this matter. We have before us Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe. Assume that the people from Thayer Nursery are here, and we have Mike White, who's the new building inspector for the town of Milton. With the application, we received a number of documents. We have initial correspondence from counsel for the applicants that was issued in October 2024, pointing out that the special permit had expired. We have emails from the Thayer Nursery folks alleging providing information about the storm flooding event on July 10th, 2025. We have messages between the Michael White, Walter White, and Bill Donnelly of our department regarding inspections and investigations at the property. We have a copy of the special permit issued by the planning board and to Thayer Nursery for property located at 270 Hillside Street and 0 and 24 Forest Street. Joshua and Maggie Oldfield being the applicants on that permit. That was issued on February 24, 2025. We have a report from the engineer for the applicants. Just trying to date for that one. I thought I had that there. We also have a report filed by DeSalle Engineering, which is dated in August. DeSalle was the applicant, not the applicants, but Thayer Nursery's engineering firm. We have, let's see, photographs showing flooding at the applicant's property, attempts to clear up the flooding at the applicant's property. We have photographs of the conditions on their premises, conditions relating to the berm and stormwater systems installed by Thayer Nursery in accordance with the permit that was issued to them. We have 2 emails from abutters talking about the conditions that gave rise to the flooding on July 10th, 2025, pointing out the presence of a high water table in the neighborhood and a high groundwater in the neighborhood as a general condition. As I said, we have continued videos, flooding, pictures of the property, and also I said conditions of the installation of the stormwater systems at the Thayer Nursery. We have letters from emails from Walter White reporting on his investigations of the property in the summer, and emails back and forth, as I said, between Michael White and Walter White and us regarding the conditions of the property. That's a rough outline of what we have has been submitted to us. And so therefore, I would ask Mr. Johanning.
Yes, I'm Phil Johanning, 23 Parkwood Drive. I guess, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a couple of clarifications your remarks. One is, this is not an action involving Thayer Nursery. This action involves the acting building commissioner, who was Walter White at the time. And so we're only appealing Walter White's decision. We're not involving, or we did not involve Thayer Nursery at all in our appeal. The appeal is only of the acting building commissioner's decision. And the other thing I want to make clear is that there was a lot of information, but this is only about the landscape business use bylaw. And in the bylaw, there's an item that says drainage plan, and it says, this plan shall show provisions for drainage and drainage infrastructure for the effective control of stormwater, and insofar as reasonably possible, its retention on site. Drainage measures shall not cause adverse drainage impacts on neighboring properties. They shall not increase water flows onto neighboring properties, nor create ponding on neighboring properties. So I just, not being an attorney, I just looked up what does shall not mean in law. And it says in law, shall not means a procedure, action, or element is absolutely prohibited and mandatory not to be done. It imposes an obligation to refrain from acting and is used to express a prohibition. And so we're talking about the acting building commissioner's decision, and that's it. We're not really talking about Thayer Nursery. And the other thing I'd like to say is that, you know, though it's interesting to see the letters from neighbors about flooding in their basement, one of the homes was built in 1860, the other was built in 1835. My home was built in 1967. We never have water in our basement, ever, ever. The reason why we had water in our basement was that it leaked in through the windows, not through the walls, not through the floor. And so we're not talking about infiltration in the way the neighbors talked about it. But it's really not about water in the basement. That's part of our complaint. But what we're talking about is what I'm talking about in the bylaw. It says, shall not cause adverse drainage impacts, shall not increase water flows onto neighboring properties, nor create ponding on neighboring properties. That's what this is all about. So the parties are John and I and the building commissioner. And the issue is ponding, flooding, drainage impacts. That's what we're talking about. So what I'm attempting to do is merely simplify what we're looking at. And the important thing about, I looked at all the photographs that were supplied by Thayer Nursery, and in fact, they don't show water flow. They show, on a bright sunny day, you know, a berm and a swale. That doesn't give you any idea of how those things act when it's actually raining. So that's all I have to say at the moment, and John will walk through the photographs.
Hi, Amy. John Rowe, 23 Parkwood Drive.
Bill, do you want to give me,
Pardon me?
do you want to give me access so I can show the map of our property?
Sure. Just a moment. Okay, you should be able to share.
I don't see anything.
It's at the bottom center of your screen. There's a green arrow.
Green arrow.
It says share.
I don't see a green arrow. Right there. Raise hand, transcript, show caption, leave.
Did you make him a panelist?
Yep. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you need to accept the request.
All these have your name on it.
Okay, and you should see that now, and you should be able to share.
I don't see the thing that he showed me before where I can adjust the speed of the video.
Okay.
You're going to show the video first or the plot plan?
Well, I mean,
Let me see if I can.
Okay, let me just show the plot plan then.
Yep.
Good. The plot plan is here.
Go to the sharing.
Thank you. No, they can't see it.
Should be sharing. Okay, let's get back out there more. Zoom. Okay, so panel, go to share. Great. And then
Oh, right here. What happened?
we just moved a little too fast.
It's okay. Where do I look? Right here. Your sharing. Right here. And then share. Okay. There you go, John. Sorry. There it is. Okay.
Sharing.
Okay, so this is the plot plan of our property. In gray is our property. To the left is the Coles, to the right is the Stevenses, and I guess to the south, if you will, is the Thayer property. One thing I wanted to note is between our property and Stevens's, which is on the right, there is a 10-foot lane. There's a fence, and you'll see it, and this is important to note when you look at the pictures and the videos. The lane, there's a fence on our side of the property, and Stevens's fence is on the property line. We own the lane. And so I think it's important for you to note that. when we look at the pictures, because the water runs from, I think it's the northeast corner of the Thayer property. It goes around the existing berm and then goes into our lane and then into our yard. But we do own the lane, so it comes onto our property and then floods our yard. Bill, do you want to show your pictures now?
Sure.
Well, the first movie is what Bill wants to show.
Okay.
Okay, so are we looking at the January flooding first, January 2024, or did you want to go to July?
Well,
2025.
Okay.
Well, we can look at that. I mean, it just gives you a picture that we've been flooded 3 times. But what we're challenging is the flooding in July. But the result, all 3 times, is the same. Where the water comes from and how it comes into, it goes around the existing berm and goes into the lane and then under our fence into our yard.
No, it's actually number 1. Do you have number 1?
The video?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Pardon me a moment.
Okay, this is, that's me with the water above my ankles. And the Thayer fence, you can see is there, and the water is, well, this is a picture of the berm. Here, can you stop it? Or, yeah, right here is where the water comes from the Thayer property underneath the fence, and then it comes into our property, into the lane, and it goes around the existing berm. It bypasses the existing berm. And so, you know, when Thayer's engineer looked at the drainage system, they didn't look at this. They only looked at the existing berm, and they didn't take into account all of the water from, and it's in Mr. Giuliano's report, I think it's the northeast corner of their property, and it comes under their fence onto my property, into the lane, and then under my fence. And you'll see flooding of the entire yard, and you'll see that the flood waters are 6 inches deep. They come across our yard, they go into the window wells, of our cellar, and that's how the cellar gets flooded, because it comes in through the windows. We don't have any cracks in the foundation, nor do we have cracks in the floor of our cellar, nor do I have a well, nor do I have a sump pump, because we've never had water. The only time we get water is when it comes across the backyard from the Thayer property into the wheel wells. So this is where the water comes in, and then from there it goes into the lane.
Now, Bill, if you can let me show the second video, which actually shows better.
Okay, so you can,
Sharing screen?
He has to run it from his. He's the
Yep.
one sharing the screen.
yep, I'm
So-
just getting out of my chair.
Yeah.
So can you get your, on your video?
Oh, I can, yeah. I push share.
Yep.
And I go to. Oh. I'm trying to get to where I need to be.
Pardon me just a moment. see if I can be of
This is
assistance.
the one I'm trying to get to. And this one right here. Can I just click on it?
Which one?
This,
Yep,
right where
yes,
the
click
arrow
right
is.
in there. And then you'll see,
Okay.
click on that, and then it should share that, play it.
All right. And the rest are just gonna be,
Is that?
JR is Johanning Row. This is pretty much the same.
That doesn't seem to be sharing though.
How do we get to it?
Okay, let's see, let's back out.
That'll just back up to the video before. Oh,
So, jump out of this.
see, that was the video it just showed.
Share. Okay,
That's the one.
click in here.
And that one.
Seems to want to share. So it is sharing, but it's not playing. It's not pulling up your,
Well,
Did you click play?
I believe
yeah,
so.
but you're not seeing the video right now. I am, but you're not.
So it's not truly sharing, so let me see.
That's what they see. Did you, that's not the one, we want that one.
Okay, so it's playing on.
Now we want the next one.
Is that the one you're looking for?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is the one.
okay.
John,
Okay, so this just goes to the right, facing the Thayer property from our property. This goes to the right. This is where the water comes in to our lane. The green fence is mine. I don't think Stevens's fence is 10 feet to the right of this. And so the water, it goes around the existing berm, entering, our property from the Thayer property. And this is this is the water coming onto our property. I own that lane. It's not owned by Stevens's, it's not owned by Thayer. I own that lane. And so that's why I wanted to show you the plot plan and to show you how the water comes from the Thayer property and goes around the existing berm, and just here, it comes right onto my property. The stone wall is the property line between us and Thayer, and yeah, so that's the water coming from there. So I just thought it was important for you to see that.
okay, the rest are yours, Bill.
Okay. Okay, and these are the photos of
So you want to go to
July? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just water coming, the green fence is ours, the arborvitae hedge is on the back of our property, although it's really not on the back of our property. The arborvitaes are probably 20 feet from the property line. In any event, this is the water coming under the fence into our yard. Next photo.
Okay.
Just more of the same. I think you can see debris. The water flow is so heavy that, there's, brush and so forth, leaves that are coming with the water. This is a picture, I'm in my pool house. The water was so high it came into the pool house. I'm standing in the pool house. Next photo. This is a photo taken after the flood, when things are dried up. You can see the debris, brush, and so forth that was from the water flow.
And the direction from the grass.
Yeah, so if you look in the right-hand corner of this photo, you see a little piece of yellow. That's our pool house.
Up here.
Right there, yeah. So the water comes from the lane, well, from there into our lane, and then here.
Moving along.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a dry photo, just more debris that, the water carried, brush and so forth, leaves. This is to the right of the pool house, just to give you an indication of how deep the water is. And from here, it goes across the backyard and into the window wells of the cellar. So the entire backyard is generally flooded with 4 to 6 inches of water during this flood. The same thing with the flood in January of 2024. It happened 2 times in January of 2024, the 13th of January and I think the 9th. Just me again with the water up to my ankles. Yeah, just another, the pool house, and you can see how deep the water is. Next photo. Yeah, and so what happened here is, this picture was taken, but it actually got so high that it went into the pool house. So yeah, I think you can see the door is open. I don't know if I have a picture of inside the pool house, but that can show you the water in the pool house, that the pool house was flooded as well.
Okay.
Me again. This is a picture of the water coming up to the house, and you can see the window well for the cellar, and the water fills the window well. So just, that water is 6 inches deep right there. Next photo. Again, the window well of the cellar.
Is half full of water.
And that's how the water gets into the cellar. So I think we've talked about that. Just a picture of the cellar and all of the junk that got ruined, and we threw it up on to the pool table. Just a lot of stuff that was ruined.
Okay.
That's Phil. Us trying to, look at the place. It's a mess.
And the important thing is the bucket. That's how full it is, and we have to carry it up.
So Phil is 70 years old. I'm 65 years old. His brother is 63. And we're sucking the water out of the cellar with a wet vac and carrying it up the cellar stairs and dumping it into the driveway.
Okay.
That process took 3 hours, more than 3 hours, and then it still wasn't dry. So just a lot of stuff ruined. This is what we're trying to protect. Next photo.
I think that's all.
That's it, okay.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Giuliano, do you want to talk about your findings and your report? And I think the board has Mr. Giuliano's letter.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So, Mike, can you go ahead?
Hello, Mike Giuliano with Eagle Brook Engineering. I have a letter that I submitted September 26th, and hopefully the board has a copy of that letter.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I've been working with Phil and John since 2015 regarding surface water coming from the Thayer property. And we worked with John and Phil and Thayer's engineer, Jimmy Burke, to develop a solution to prevent stormwater from entering their property. And that solution was to build an earthen berm and to send the water that's coming up the hill into the swale and down towards hillside. And once water gets into that swale, it's fine, because the swale and the berm are working as designed, as functioned. We performed a site visit with everybody in 2020, and the berm was constructed. The erosion, there was no erosion. Everything was vegetated, so everything looked fine. But I know we had stormwater that entered onto Phil and John's property in January of 2024 and then July of 2025. And I just included just a couple of pictures in my letter. The first two are the location of where water is basically bypassing the berm. So a portion of the water is bypassing the berm, and a portion of the water is going down the swale. That water that goes in the swale is fine, because it's contained within the swale, and the berm is containing the water. It's the water that's bypassing that berm. And on the last page, I have a sketch of the end of the berm as constructed, and then where water is coming from their property onto not only John and Phil's property, but also Teven's property. And that never happened before, because I've witnessed a few summer events back in 2015, 16, 17, thereabouts, and water never entered the Teven's property. So there's been a change in drain patterns, and a portion of the water is bypassing the swale. And that's why surface water is flowing onto John and Phil's property. And the easy solution is just extend the berm, because the berm is working. We just extend the berm. It will prevent the water from entering onto Phil and John's property, and it'll be sent down to hillside, which is where most of the water is currently being flowed. I don't think there's any engineering study that needs to be done. I think I fully understand what the problem is for the last 10 years. It's just water bypassing the berm, and we just need to extend the berm, prevent water from flowing from their property onto John and Phil's property.
Let me just ask, do Jeff and Michael, do you have any questions for the engineer?
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have a single question. Your report, Mr. Giuliano, mentions that, excuse me while I pull it up here, it appears that the drainage patterns on the Thayer property have been altered to allow surface water to bypass the berm. I understand, and you just mentioned that the drainage patterns have changed. Are you aware of any structural or other change on the Thayer property that could have led to these drainage changes?
No, I haven't been up to the Thayer property, but I know from prior to 2020, water never entered the Teven's property, and it flowed further to the northwest. And something changed, or I'm not sure what it is, but now it's entering, or some of the water, not all of it, but some of the water is entering further southwest of the berm before it even reaches that berm.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, could you bring up your the schematic that you put together
He can't because he's not a panelist, I don't think.
Oh, can you make him a panelist? Because I think that's important to show.
Is he? Okay.
I mean, at least for myself, I'm looking at it here on my screen.
Can you see,
Looks like he's about to start.
Yeah,
can you see, is that the plan you're talking about?
yeah, and if you look
Right.
at, and maybe Mike, you can talk to this a little bit
Yeah.
better than I
So-
can.
So a lot of the pictures we see of the swale, that's in the berm, that's over here, that extends this way, and hillside's over to the left. And this is working fine. You know, it's containing water. But what's happening is water's coming down, and it used to come down generally in this fashion right here. But for some reason, it's coming over here before the berm even starts. And so some of the water's going down the swale, but some of the water's actually coming in through here. And this is the photographs that show the wood fence and the chain link fence, that's over in this corner over in here. So some of the water's coming here and then flowing onto John and Bill's property. And then some of the water's obviously flowing down the berm. So this is where the problem is. And just extending the berm further to the southeast, that will solve the problem. I think it's, fairly simple.
So just to reiterate, Mike, you think just by extending the berm, a very, very simple exercise can make everybody happy?
Yeah, because we looked at this with Bear's engineer for the last, 5 years, and it's obviously surface water, and by extending the berm, it will force water to go along the swale towards hillside. And the reason for water flowing onto John and Phil's property is because it's bypassing the berm. So I think it's just a matter of extending the berm.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Giuliani?
I had a question. I was wondering on these events, I'm new, I'm only been here 2.5 months, so I don't really know the whole history of what's been going on, but I got a pretty good idea now. I'm curious on the dates that these events happened. Do we know how much rain fell? I know recently Milton's had some serious storms that the expressway drainage was overwhelmed and they had to shut the expressway down. And I'm just curious if we know the amounts or ballpark amount of rain that fell on those incidents.
I think I can answer on July, is it the 15th, Phil? Or the 13th? The 10th of July. Several inches of rain fell in a few hours. Okay. If you listen to the weather people, every year we have a 100-year storm. This is our reality, climate change. And the drainage should be sufficient enough to handle 100-year storms that happen every year now. And like Phil pointed out, the bylaw says, you cannot, flood the abutting properties. And that's what the bylaw says. I didn't write the bylaw. And I don't think, when this has happened 3 times within a 12-month period, these aren't 100-year storms. They're not. And our engineer that we paid for, and we paid for, and Mr. Mullen, you're well aware of how many times we paid Mr. Giuliano for other abutting properties when they wanted to build a house and so forth. And Mr. Giuliano reviewed their drainage plan, and the Cards house in particular, Mr. Giuliano, we paid for him to look at the drainage plan, and the builder of the Cards house agreed to make Mr. Giuliano's changes, and it did not get any flooding. And I just want to point out, Mr. Mullen, you know this, we have paid for this. And it's not our responsibility to pay for drainage studies for neighbors' properties, especially neighbors that one was, once a commercial establishment and the other one was developing a house on a vacant lot. So I just wanted to say that.
Any other questions of Mr. Giuliano? Okay. Is there anything else that you are going to be presenting to us?
Phil, did you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm Walter White. I was the acting building commissioner.
Oh, yes.
And as Mr. Johanning pointed out, they're simply challenging my decision,
I understand that, Mr. White.
but they haven't presented that case.
Well,
We can't hear Walter. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Can't hear him unless he's sitting at the table.
Need the microphone.
Sorry. So they're here complaining about my decision, and we haven't addressed that decision yet. And they said they're not complaining about there, and they're not complaining about the flooding, just my decision. So we're kind of getting a little far afield from where this is, from the subject matter of
Well, we
the
haven't
reason.
finished presenting, and so if you'll give us that opportunity, we'll do that, and then if you still have an issue, why don't you come back? But I think that it makes the most sense if we can do our job and then you can do yours. Does that make sense to you?
Well, you're alleging that you're challenging my decision.
I'm going to
Complaining
talk
my
about that
decision.
now, Walter. So why don't you give me a chance to finish?
Okay.
All right.
Could I just jump in here?
No, let's keep this, please, on an even keel. Mr. Johanning is going to be presenting the next section of your appeal, and we just as soon keep that going.
Okay. I wish to make 2 points tonight. The first is that the decision of the acting building inspector that our property was not flooded by water emanating from Thayer Nursery is without merit, and the issue must be sent back to the building inspector for further consideration of the facts. The second point is that enforcement of the provisions of the landscaping business use bylaw by the Inspectional Services Department has been extraordinarily lax. John Rowe and I are appealing against the decision of the acting building inspector not to enforce Milton General Bylaw, Chapter 275, Article 3, Section 275-3.14, and thereby failing to protect our civil right to the protection of the bylaw. Walter White's July 15, 2025 decision was, I have no evidence to show that runoff from Thayer Nursery caused water to enter your basement. I believe that the water leakage you experienced is due to the hydrology of the soil in that neighborhood generally, and at least in this case, not due to runoff from Thayer Nursery. If stormwater had breached the berm and run across your yard and into your basement, that would indicate that perhaps the berm was not designed properly, but apparently that's not what happened. The Oldfields also report that they have engaged the engineering firm of Burke, DeSalle, Sala, and Associates Incorporated to design the drainage system and to produce the report you mentioned. The firm has not yet delivered the report. So he says, apparently that's not what happened, yet he had no way to know that because he didn't look at our pictures or videos, and he didn't have the report from DeSalle Burke. On 7/18, in an email to me, Mr. White admitted, 1, that he was not sufficiently expert in soil hydrology, and 2, that he did not have the engineering report that the Oldfields were required to submit to the planning board by July 1st, 2025. Mr. Walter White had no idea regarding the functioning of the drainage system. In fact, the report of DeSalle et al. Is dated 8/26. John and I contend that neither Walter White nor Michael White conducted a proper investigation of the matter that John and I reported, and that, 2, the July 15th decision of Walter White was not based on a proper review of all evidence. John and I ask that this board finds that the decision of the acting building inspector is arbitrary, whimsical, capricious, and made with gross negligence, in bad faith, or with malice. We ask that this board unanimously find that the acting building inspector's decision regarding flooding is without merit, and we ask the board to send this issue back to Michael White, the head of inspectional services, to do a more thorough investigation of the matter, considering all evidence, including a site visit of Thayer Nursery's drainage system and a site visit of the Johanning Row property. We ask this for several reasons. We have been offered no opportunity to show our photographs related to the flooding to Walter White. No one ever spoke with us about our complaint to fully understand it, and no one from inspectional services ever visited our property to see what we consider to be the cause of the flooding. This meeting with the Zoning Board of Appeals is the first and the only time that we have found a way to show the acting building inspector, the building inspector, our evidence regarding the flooding. We also have a report from our engineer, Michael Giuliano, that shows on the as-built plan an area before the start of the berm, which he believes is the highly probable source of the flooding of our property based on photographs taken at the time of the flooding. Mr. Giuliano was not permitted to enter Thayer's property, so a more in-depth analysis was not possible. As the landscaping business use bylaw requires a prompt cure of any material violation, we insist that Mr. Michael White work with Josh and Maggie Oldfield to determine the source of the flooding and to find a solution. Mr. Giuliano has proposed an extension of the berm behind lot N12-8 as an inexpensive measure to prevent future flooding. If the building inspector is not able to work with Thayer, Michael White must return to the Zoning Board of Appeals to request the revocation of the February 24, 2025 special permit as required in the bylaw. Subsequent to Mr. Walter White's decision on July 16, 2025, we requested a meeting with him to show our photographs of the flow of water from Thayer onto our property, but he would not agree to meet. At no time did Mr. Walter White attempt to understand our complaint by speaking with us. He made a decision based on Josh Oldfield's statements and a video. John and I made a records request for the video on July 18th. We never received it. We asked to review the video with Mr. Walter White on July 16th, but that never happened. We requested a meeting with Mr. Michael White, the new head of inspectional services, on July 24th. He responded that he needed to get up to speed on the issues. I met briefly with Michael White when I went to his office on August 4th. I just showed up. We accomplished nothing at the meeting. As residents, John and I do not believe that it should be so difficult to meet or to resolve matters with town officials, and we believe that this behavior is a further violation of our civil rights. Mr. Walter White had time to speak with Josh Oldfield regarding our complaint, but not with us. We asked this board to instruct the building inspector to take decisive action to uphold the landscaping business use bylaw, which prohibits flooding on neighboring properties. We believe that Michael White could resolve the flooding issue by requiring Thayer Nursery to have DeSalle et al. And Eaglebrook Engineering, our engineering firm, work together to fully investigate the adequacy of the current design to prevent flooding of neighboring properties. If the engineers identify deficiencies in the current design, the building inspector must instruct Thayer to immediately initiate and complete the necessary changes to prevent future flooding, which is a material violation of the bylaw. That solution was actually proposed by Mr. Walter White in an email on August 7th. John Rowe and I have offered to engage our engineer, Michael Giuliano from Eaglebrook Engineering in Danvers, who has worked with DeSalle et al. In the past, to again look at the drainage system at Thayer Nursery and to determine if the system continues to function in a way to avoid flooding as required in the bylaw. Though it is not our responsibility, we have offered to pay for the services of Mr. Giuliano. Mr. Walter White stated in his July 18th email, "I think the best solution at this point is to have your engineer work with DeSales, Burke, Sala to figure it out. I am not expert enough at soil hydrology to get into a debate with an engineer about solving this problem. So Walter has already suggested this, and I'm simply repeating his suggestion. One of the big problems that John and I had was trying to figure out if Walter's July 15th decision was actually a final decision. We asked more than twice whether this was a final decision or not. We didn't know whether it was, and so we had to appeal in order to make our appeal within the right number of days. If his decision is, I think that the best solution at this point is to have your engineer work with DeSalle, Burke, Sala, that would be fine with us. We just didn't know what was his final decision. On July 15th, it appeared to be his final decision that the water did not come from Thayer. On August, but I think our videos show that it does. On August 7th, Walter White reported that Thayer Nurseries owners would not allow Michael Giuliano, our engineer, to enter their property to investigate if there was a problem with the drainage system at Thayer. We see no reason why the building inspector cannot ask Thayer to have their engineer review our evidence, and why the building inspector cannot require Thayer to have DeSalle et al. Work with Eaglebrook to ensure compliance with the bylaw. In the event of a serious violation of the bylaw, which is not cured timely, the building inspector must go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to request revocation of the special permit. The flooding from January 2024 was not corrected. Flooding reoccurred in July 2025, and the problems that caused the flooding have still not been resolved. Milton General Bylaws, Chapter 275, Article 3, Section 275-3.14, Landscaping Business Use, states the following requirements that we claim were violated by Mr. Walter White. 1, upon application by the building commissioner during the term or extended term of the special permit may be revoked by the Board of Appeals after hearing in the event of a material violation which has not been promptly cured following notice from the building commissioner. 2, drainage measures shall not cause adverse drainage impacts on neighboring properties. They shall not increase water flows onto neighboring properties, nor create ponding on neighboring properties. As John pointed out, we didn't write the bylaw, but the bylaw was approved by 2/3 of a town meeting, and it was also approved by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth. So it pretty much is what it is, and it means what it says. The special permit shall, number 3, the special permit shall satisfy all requirements specified in this section 275-3.14 and may contain other requirements, terms, and conditions deemed necessary or appropriate by the planning board. The planning, the special...
This testimony has been submitted to us, and we have
Yeah.
it on the website,
Yeah.
so...
Well, I'd like to read it if that's okay with you.
Do you need to read it in its entirety?
Yeah, I did. And it takes 15 minutes in actuality, so I don't think 15 minutes is a huge intrusion, but I want to be sure that everyone understands our point of view. And apparently, for Mr. Walter White's satisfaction, I want to be sure that he understands why we're appealing his decision, if that's okay with you. Is that okay with you? Or?
Yeah, I mean, just this sort of in the interest of, keeping things moving along. This is said, this
I'm reading as
information
quickly
has
as I
been
can.
on the website and been available.
The special permit for landscaping business use was issued by the planning board on February 24th, 2025, and it states that this special permit is issued with the following additional terms and conditions. By July 1st, 2025, the applicants shall have their drainage system inspected by their choice of either their engineer, who shall be a Massachusetts licensed civil engineer, or a town of Milton's engineer. The inspecting engineer shall attest that the drainage system is operating as designed by providing a letter to that effect to the planning board. John Rowe and I have reported to Mr. Walter White the following 3 material violations of the bylaw since the expiration of the 2019 special permit for landscaping business use in September 2024. 2 of those violations are issues here. The third is mentioned only to demonstrate a pattern of inaction and complete disregard for our civil rights under the bylaw. Following our complaints, the material violations were not promptly cured, and the acting building commissioner took no meaningful action. I'll shorten this by saying on July 10th, we experienced flooding in our yard and in our basement that appeared to emanate from Thayer Nursery. Walter White did not review any of the evidence that we had. On July 10th, 2025, I made a records request to Walter White for the drainage system engineering report that was supposed to be delivered to the planning board under the terms of the February 24th, 2025 special permit for landscaping business use by July 1st, 2025. Walter said that the report had not yet been delivered, and in fact, it wasn't delivered until August 26th. I mentioned to the Honorable Judge Cahalane in Superior Court in Dedham on August 27th, 2025, that I had not yet seen the drainage report that was a requirement of the February 24th, 2025 special permit that was due on July 1st, 2025, for which I had made a records request on July 10th. So my thought about this matter is that Thayer did not intend to furnish the report as required, or they had not read the special permit and were unaware. If that were not so, why did it take 6 months for a professional engineering firm working for Thayer to supply a simple letter which truly lacked any type of investigation or analysis? Finally, our attorney, Matthew Dunn, discussed with us the expiration of the 2019 special permit in mid-September 2024. We decided not to take immediate action.
That's not an issue here at all.
But what it is
the special permit
what it is,
special permit that is the one that you are dealing with, not the one that expired.
but what it is part of a pattern of lax enforcement by the Inspectional Services Department. We reported it, and Mr. Walter White wrote back to us and said that Josh Oldfield thought that he had another year and Josh was working on the application. I asked the town clerk for a copy of the application after it was turned in. It was a 1-page application on the town form dated December 3rd.
As I said, Mr. Johanning, that is not the issue before us today.
Lax enforcement is an issue for us, and this is part of a pattern of lax enforcement. So as I said, this particular matter is meant to demonstrate a disturbing pattern of indifference by inspectional services. It is now before Norfolk Superior Court involving the failure of the applicants and the Milton Planning Board to adhere to the requirements of the bylaw. In summary, John Rowe and I ask that the Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously reject the decision of Walter White, the acting building inspector, regarding 1, the flooding of our property, and 2, allowing Thayer not to timely provide the engineering report as required by the 2025 special permit as arbitrary, whimsical, capricious, and made with gross negligence in bad faith or malice. The decision regarding flooding was based on the most superficial and one-sided of investigations. Walter completely ignored the requirements of the 2025 special permit regarding the engineering report. I remind the board that under the bylaw, it is the responsibility of the head of inspectional services to bring major violations of the bylaw that are not timely corrected to the Zoning Board of Appeals for possible revocation of the special permit. That did not occur in the 3 cases that we have cited, 2 of which are issues here. We ask this board to return these matters to Michael White, building inspector, for a more thorough review of the facts. We ask the board to keep in mind when making its decision that John Rowe and I have offered to have our engineer work at our expense with Thayer's engineer at their expense to identify the source of the flooding problem and to work on a plan to correct the problem. The landscaping business use bylaw prohibits flooding of neighboring properties. The elimination of future flooding events is a civil right that John and I have under the general bylaws of the town of Milton. John and I are under no obligation to pay a licensed engineer to solve this problem. At the same time, we find it may save money for us, the town, and the Oldfields to spend some money now to solve the problem rather than to fight about this further violation of the bylaw in Norfolk Superior Court. Prompt implementation of any improvements to the drainage system identified by the engineers may solve the problem in the same way as it was solved from 2016 to 2024. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Johanning. Mr. White?
Thank you.
So I guess you had started to speak, and we sort of cut you off to sort of have Mr. Johanning finish up. But if you could sort of enlighten both Mr. White, the other Mr. White, and the board as to what happened in July and what steps you had taken.
Sure. So I've been working in Milton part-time as a local inspector for about 12 years. And as you know, or you may know, we've been out without
Pretty much of a revolving door in the building
full-time
department.
commissioner. So having been been in that seat in other towns in my career, I stepped in and was acting as the building commissioner. And my first involvement with Thayer during my tenure here was when the permit expired from, the 5-year special permit that they had. And that was the first time that I went up and spoke to Maggie first and said, your permit's expired. And they just didn't know it or had lost track or whatever. So then, fast forward to the flood, which was what, July 10th? July 10th. I get an email from Josh, unsolicited, saying I checked the drainage, and the drain going out the hillside is free and clear. It's all cleaned out. And I said, okay. And then I get the complaint from Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe. So I knew that DeSalle Burke Sala was involved in the engineering. And I was, and Mr. Johanning, I believe, had said that there was supposed to be a letter forthcoming from them. So that's when I started asking the Oldfields for that letter, which they hadn't received yet. So my focus was then, I'm not sure how I found out, but that there was another engineer involved, who we heard from tonight. And apparently their engineer, Ian Burke, designed the berm at the back of the property. He didn't have any pictures of that, but it's a berm all the way along the back of the property. In some places, it's 3 or 4 feet high, and it's got a drain that goes out the hillside street and goes directly into a storm drain.
Right.
But somehow the water was apparently coming across, and a lot of it was going through the abutting property and then coming onto their property. But I'm not going to get between two engineers who designed the original system. And, as I'm sitting here tonight listening to the other engineer's testimony, it seems like the system wasn't designed to handle this volume of water. They're alleging that there was some change on the Oldfield property site that changed the drainage pattern. But to my knowledge, and I haven't asked them the question, did they change anything on that site that would have changed the drainage pattern? And they mentioned the Card property. That's a new house that was built. So that's got to have some effect on it. So, what I'm thinking now is that the engineers design wasn't sufficient to handle this type of water volume. So, and that's why I suggested, I didn't know at the time that that's where I was heading, but my initial point was, let the engineers get together and figure it out, especially in light of the history of this property and the special permits and all that. So, I forget, I did say, Mr. Jennings correct in that email that I sent, that your engineer should get together with Burke and figure it out. And I think, and I was just waiting for that to happen. And I hadn't heard back from them. I went back to the old fields a couple of times and said, where is Burke's letter? We need to get that letter to get this started. And as people may know, they're a very busy engineering firm. They're very popular. It seems like everybody in the world uses them. And, I can understand why it would take some, people in that field a while to get a letter. Not excusing it, but, so I'm waiting for the letter, and I did make a couple of attempts going up there and saying, where's the letter? And the letter finally came in August sometime. And, but I had heard nothing from Mr. Johanning or Mr. Rowe about their engineer. And, trying to get that discussion started and to try and figure it out. So that's where we are. And they felt, apparently, as they said, that they were running out of time to make an appeal of my decision, which really wasn't a decision.
Well, the case law is kind of sketchy, is kind of clear about this. They really had to do something because if they don't file it in time.
No, I understand,
So
I understand.
I can see why they would have made that step.
Sure.
Jeff or Michael, do you have any questions for Walter White?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
No, thank you.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else in the in Zoom or in the room that would like to say something to the board about this matter?
Not seeing anyone on the Zoom.
Okay.
No hands.
Gentlemen, any questions from you folks? Jeff and Michael?
No question, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. White, did you want to jump in on anything? Or
Like I said, I'm fairly new to it, so I have gone with Walter. August 5th, I think, was the first trip just to get my eyes on what was going on. And I think back then we didn't see any evidence of any breakthrough. So I think the whole time the talk was that there was a breakthrough of the berm. And I think just recently with the Eagle engineering that he thinks it may be going around a portion of it. So the whole time we were looking for a physical break somewhere. And I think all that I had, it took me a little bit to hunt down. I think there's the main decision and 3 separate amendments to it. I actually tracked all that down and took it with me, and one item by item walked through the whole list and the engineer's report on the drainage system. And they believe there were 4 dead shrubs, which
you had mentioned that.
actually there were only 4. They planted 13 new ones, and we actually went out today to check on that. I've been so busy I haven't had time to get back out there. Then the 26th, I believe, we received the engineer's letter, which without that, we couldn't do anything. We're not engineers, so we needed to see what his report said. And went out, actually, I think I had gone back early September to see if the 4 shrubs had been replaced, and they hadn't, and they said we'll have them in this weekend to come back, and I just finally had time today. Walter and I went back, walked the whole berm again, looking for some kind of breakthrough, and didn't see anything. I actually, when I got back, because I'm not completely familiar with the town, I was just curious about the surrounding elevations. I'm not an engineer. I just went on to
Oh, yeah, I saw that,
Mass
yeah.
GIS and just took like a westerly line straight through 23 Parkwood, straight through Thayer, and continued it to the end of Milton. And that elevation, I'm assuming it's on Blue Hills, was around a 500 foot above sea level. I believe 23 Parkwood's at about 181 feet above sea level, so that's like a 319 foot elevation pitching down toward Thayer and Parkwood. Then to the south, I think, is a straight line if Parkwood followed. To the end was like a 60 foot elevation, so you got a 60 foot drop and a 320 colliding, unfortunately, right at Thayer and Parkwood area, and it continues down, what street was it? Down toward the reservoirs. It came to a 50
yeah.
foot, but they're almost like at the bottom of a bowl with those two elevations slamming into that property. So I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of water just naturally heading that way.
Can I say something?
No, just a sec, let me
You
just,
have a
yeah.
hand raised. A remote attendee, Rick Curtis, did you want to hear from him?
Yes,
Okay.
and then,
Mr. Curtis, you can speak now.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. I'll be very quick here. My name is Rick Curtis. I live in Marshfield with my wife, Joan. My parents and I were residents of Milton for over 34 years. And my parents built that house in 1967. I was a young teenager. And I testified to this, and I'm reiterating what I testified to in a deposition over 15 years ago when the owners of Parker Drive were suing Thayer Nursery. So back then, as a young teenager, I helped my father many, many times get rid of water in the cellar. And we found out that when it rained, not just a drizzle, but when it rained, the window wells would fill up and the water would subsequently come through the window into the basement. So we didn't know what to do. We called a good friend of ours, Gus Bosworth from Bosworth Construction, who lived down the end of the street at that time. He brought a backhoe to the property. My parents had not built the pool yet. And he dug at least 20-foot long ditches from each window well, put PVC pipe in it, and at the end of those ditches, he dug a big dry well, very big, deep dry well, and filled it with stone. Now, to the best of my recollection, that worked for a long time. A few years after my parents built the home, they built the pool. And so we found out that the whole area is the composition of the soil is clay, which, as you know, doesn't permit water to flow through and permeate easily. And also we found out that there are a number of springs in that area in the ground. In fact, my father would boast every year that in the springtime, when the water table, and especially a very high water table in the spring and summertime, from the runoff from Blue Hills and the melting of the snow, my father would boast all he had to do was open up a valve and it would fill the swimming pool every year, and it wouldn't cost us a penny. All natural spring water. So on behalf of Maggie and Josh, I just wanted to reiterate the same info that I gave under testimony, under oath, 15 or more years ago in a deposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Would you come up, please, and just state your name? Yes?
My name's Josh Oldfield, 24 Forest Street, Milton, one of the owners of Thayer Nursery. With respect to the drainage system, we've designed and installed as mandated, and it's maintained as we should. There's been a lot of legal litigation over this system, and I'm afraid of changing what we need to do because it could affect legal litigation decisions. So that's my challenge here. So we've been down this path many, many times with this crew, and that's where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oldfield. Anyone else? Yes, come up to the mic.
Phil Johanning. I only want to make one final comment, and that is the pictures are the pictures. They show the flow that we suffer from. We have the suggestion from a licensed professional engineer. And with respect to flooding, yeah, there have been challenges between us and the old fields. But I guess what I would do is urge everyone here to find a solution and not fight it, because we did, our finished basement was pretty much destroyed in 2014. We had a tort action against Thayer and the old fields in 2014. Court records show that the case was settled in 2016, and if that should happen again, we'll be back again. So the best way for all of us to live together and to find a solution is to find a solution. And if the professional engineers got together and they say, okay, this is the best solution, we live with it. Unlike what Mr. Curtis said, we do not have flooding. We had flooding once or twice in January 2024, and we had flooding once in July. We had no flooding from 2016 to 2024. That system worked great. We worked together, we created a system that eliminated our problem, and we can do that again. So I would urge everyone, like, let's not fight about this. Let's solve the problem. Let's have Mr. Michael White take a look at the facts. And one of the things that disturbed me was that Michael White talked about going to Thayer Nursery. No one came to us. No one reviewed anything that we had, and we've had it all along. No one visited our lot. No one walked up the lane to see what we were talking about. No one did that. And that's part of what I'm talking about when I say it was a poor investigation of the facts. So let's work together. Let's not just talk to one party, let's talk to both parties. Michael White, Walter White, anybody who wants to come can come to 23 Parkwood and take a look. If the decision of both engineers working together is whatever it is, we'll live with that. But I just want to say that it is not our goal to fight. We want to live in peace with Thayer Nursery and with the old fields. And I think it's possible at this juncture, and we should try to do that. And we should not try not to make the change that could make everybody happy and could save everybody money, including the town of Milton. You know, I remember years ago asking Anne Marie Fagan, what amount of money has been spent by the town of Milton on legal matters relating to Johanning Row and Thayer Nursery? And she said between $250,000 and $300,000. That was years ago. So let's stop this. Let's get over this. We've spent money, the old fields have spent money, the town has spent money. Let's spend money to solve the problem and eliminate this issue. Flooding does hurt us. And unlike what Mr. Curtis said, we don't have flooding. We don't have flooding. It's just this time, and I think it was because the berm needs to be extended. What exactly changed it there, I don't know. But let's not worry about that. Let's just get the engineers together. Let's let them find a solution. Let's move on, and let's stop spending money on fighting each other. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oldfield?
Hi, I'm Maggie Oldfield. I live at 237 Hillside Street. I'd just like to make a couple points. The first point is the Massachusetts Stormwater Standards governs all development, and the basic standards, there are 3 of them. One is that stormwater management systems shall be designed so that post-development peak discharge rates do not exceed pre-development peak discharge rates. 2, the redevelopment project is required to meet these standards only to the maximum extent practicable. And 3, a long-term operation and maintenance plan shall be developed and implemented to ensure that stormwater management systems functions as designed. We have continued to meet these 3 standards for the past 10 or 15 years, and 4 different building inspectors have agreed. Second point, Thayer Nursery has not done any changes on our property. Back in 2020, as was mentioned earlier, a new house was built next to us. The applicants tonight, they did have their engineer review it. I did speak at the ZBA hearing about it, and I specifically stated, I hope that whatever the ZBA does in granting this permit, they had to bring in excess of 1,000 cubic yards of fill to create this above-ground septic tank. And I said, I'm not going to have any objections to this, so long as there'll be no impact on our drainage system. So we made our concerns known to the town of Milton back then. The ZBA granted that variance, and we have very nice neighbors. Third point, we are in the Scottswood district of Milton, which sits on the edge of the Blue Hills and within the Neponset River watershed. We sit within 7,000 acres of the Blue Hill Reservation, and we're a sub-basin within 120 miles of the Neponset River watershed. Scotts Woods is about 122 acres and has a hilly residential area with a downslope flow into a larger managed natural watershed. The runoff from the Blue Hills feeds a network of brooks, including Pine Tree and Unquity, and continues to flow all the way to the Neponset River. As a residential area bordering a protected reservation, Scotts Woods is impacted by stormwater runoff from uphill and from public streets and private properties. Runoff is a huge concern for all the residents in our neighborhood, not just one property. Changing precipitation patterns due to climate change also affect the area's hydrology. And climate change will bring more intense rain and snow events that can exacerbate stormwater flooding everywhere. Our fields and plant material act as a natural sponge, absorbing excess water and heavy rains to help mitigate downstream flooding. Our fields and open spaces also recharge the groundwater. And what would the flooding be like if we were to develop and densify our property by adding more impervious surfaces? Imagine what would happen to Scotts Woods if we weren't there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oldfield.
Mr. Chairman, may I say
No,
something?
could I, no, sorry, I just want to find out if there's anyone else that has raised a hand, asked any questions? Okay.
I'll be quick. I don't think I need to say this. It should be clear, but there will never be a solution if there's no cooperation with Thayer Nursery. And they've just said that they don't want to cooperate with us. We are offering to pay our engineer to work with their engineer, and I shouldn't have to pay. We want to solve the flooding. And so I think that we're looking for this board to make some kind of directive that forces Thayer Nursery to work with our engineer so that we can all solve the problem together. And I don't want to, nobody wants to see us again, right? And our engineer has come up with a solution, but nothing can ever be implemented without the cooperation of Thayer Nursery, and they've already stated that they will not work with our engineer. So we're looking for some help there. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, Jeff and Michael?
I don't have any further questions.
Neither do I.
I think it might be appropriate at this point to close the public hearing. And I'd take a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, and the board now will discuss the request before us, which is to consider whether we would direct the building inspectors to go back and investigate the situation with the flooding at 23 Parkwood and Thayer Nursery, and sort of overturn the decision of the building inspector in July, not to take any further action on the permit. Thoughts, Mr. Gentleman?
I have some thoughts if it's appropriate.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so first thing I want to say is I appreciate the record that's been compiled, so thank you to Mr. Joe Henning and Mr. Rowe. The second thing is, I see the then commissioner, Mr. Walter White's correspondence in his view, but I agree with him that it's not a final decision. It appears anything but a final decision. It appears to be an indication that he didn't have sufficient facts and he asked for more information to reach a conclusion. I can see where that might be read as a decision and therefore what caused this hearing to be held, but I don't think that it is, and I think that it's fair to say that. With that said, we do have a request from an abutter to enforce a special permit issued by the planning board, and we are the enforcement entity of a decision of the building inspector. I think I agree with Mr. Joe Henning that this should be sent back to the building commissioner for additional consideration for the conclusion of the finding, consistent with what Mr. Walter White said. So I actually think they were saying the same thing. I don't think it's necessary to find that the decision was arbitrary or to otherwise disparage Walter's record or the acting commissioner's record at the time. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's appropriate for the board, but I do think that I would urge the board to have this matter, for lack of a better term, remanded to the building inspector for a finding as to whether or not the permit has been violated. I think that it should mandate that there be a site visit, and I would invite the Thayer Nursery holders of the permit to participate in that, and that makes sense to me. I also think it's appropriate that the Eagle Brook Engineering and Survey report that was submitted and Mr. Giuliano's testimony seems to me to have credibility, but I don't think we have enough facts to conclude it one way or the other. If the building commissioner finds that the permit has been violated and issues a remedy that he believes to be appropriate, that Mr. Joe Henning and Mr. Rowe disagree with, they have a perfect right to appeal that as well, and they can do that at their option. On the other hand, if they find that the permit is not being violated, they can also appeal that. But I think if we remand this back to the commissioners for further determination on compliance with the terms of the permit, that would be an appropriate action that would actually end this hearing tonight, subject to a further finding and appropriate action by initially the commissioner's office and subsequently by the appellants, should they choose to do so. And that's my recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with everything Mr. Mullen said. I think that, first of all, thank you to everybody involved for putting the record together and working so hard to give us as much information as possible. But I also think that the building inspector perhaps did not have the benefit of all the facts. And I also think that, the videos and photographs are helpful, but, big rainstorms by definition are infrequent and difficult to investigate after they occur. And given that both sides have experts engaged, and given that this is an ongoing issue, I agree with everything Mr. Mullen just said.
Thank you, gentlemen. I agree with Mr. Mullen as well. I also don't think that that Mr. Walter White had all the information that we now do have before us when he was walking on the property. We also, as has been pointed out, have had some changes in staff and some grateful additions since this whole process started. And I would also agree that the July 10th storm was pretty incredible as a person that was on the expressway before it got closed. I would, I don't think that we need to characterize Mr. White's decision the way the applicants have, but I would support a remand back to the building inspectors for further investigation and encourage the applicants and Thayer Nursery to have their engineers speak to each other. One of the things that has concerned me about all of this is that I'm not certain about the source of the water. You can say that it's come from some adjacent property, but could also, because of the high amount of rain, that it could have been groundwater as well. And so I think that would be something else I would suggest to the building inspectors to take a look at with their engineers as to how much of that's groundwater and how much of that's stormwater, because there's a difference. And so I would support a motion to remand this matter back to the building department for further investigation and consultation with those engineers.
Second.
Do I have a vote?
I seconded the motion, so
Oh, yeah.
I support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye from Kathleen O'Donnell.
Aye.
That's our decision, is to remand it back to the building inspectors and hope that they can take a look at all the incredible information that was provided by Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe, their engineers, and also looking at DeSalle Burke to sort of take a look to see whether or not the addition, another piece of the berm may help or not. If it's groundwater, that's not going to make any difference. So I think that's something we all have to look at. And I'd take a motion to adjourn the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much, everybody, for attending. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
See you later, Mike.
Bye, Jeff. Thanks, Kathleen.
You're welcome. Thanks, Michael.